Hey everybody, I'm Daniel Graves and you are watching Tone Deaf, the show where I talk about my experiences and insights in the music industry. Today I will be continuing with my Artist to Artist series where I sit down with some of my favorite musicians to have an honest and open discussion about the nature of being a creator. My guest today is none other than the fantastic multi-instrumentalist Jinxx, who you will all certainly know as the guitarist, violinist, pianist, and songwriter in Black Veil Brides. But he's also been a part of numerous other bands such as Amen and The Dreaming. And also, of course, he can be heard on numerous Aesthetic Perfection tracks, such as the brand new single Party Monster. Jinxx, hey, buddy. Thank you for being here.
Hey. Oh, man, thanks for having me. It's good to see you. It's been, seems like it's been 10 years.
I know, right?
Yep.
I feel like the last time we saw each other was my going away party, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was. Yeah. Yeah, man. Geez, how long ago was that now? Since you've been over there in Austria?
Yeah, we moved back so it's like August 31st was the day that we flew out of LAX and we landed on September 1st. So like September 1st, 2019 was the official Austria move date. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, lots happened since then. Both our worlds, but I don't know where to begin. It's everything that's happened since then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're looking awesome, and it's
thank you. Likewise.
It's so good. It's so good to catch up with you, and then like you said, there's been so much has changed since we last saw each other, and I mean, I think the biggest change of all for you is you're now a dad.
I know. What the heck? Right. It's huge. I don't know where to start with it. Basically, a year ago, actually, it was just after Super Bowl a year ago. So, so I'm kind of thinking in terms of time frame, we found out we were pregnant. And Alice, my wife, and I, and well, she was pregnant. I wasn't pregnant, but but anyway, and honestly, we were thinking about it for a long time, last few years. It wasn't like it was a huge surprise. Yeah. And we were trying, we were ready in that stage of our lives where it's like, well, it's now or never, right? We're only going to get older, and so if we're going to do this, we're going to do it now. And it was well thought out, well planned. I mean, think about it. People are like, oh, Lennon's a COVID baby, and that's not true, actually, because he was conceived before, not to get into graphic details or anything, but it was before the first case of known coronavirus was in the United States. And, I think it was known that this strange virus was happening in China at the time. And but anyway, long story short, we found out we were pregnant with him before even, we knew it was going to be a pandemic. So about a month before, really. So, but anyway, he was planned. And then, well, the thing is, it was kind of scary when we found out, and because Black Veil we were planning a huge world tour in 2020, like many other bands out there, and so well, we did one show in Mexico City. I think it was on March 6th or something like that, and one show, and we flew home and we saw, just watching the news. It was like, okay, and then seeing all the dominoes falling, Live Nation announcing all these, tours being canceled, bands starting to postpone dates. And we're like, oh man. And we had, and then, sure enough, we waited as long as we could, and it was like, okay, we got to announce that, and at that time we were like, well, we'll just postpone all the U.S. dates till after, we'll just do them in the summertime when we were going to have a couple months off. We'll just kind of shift gears a little, not thinking it's going to be the whole year. But anyway, long story short, with Lennon, find out we're pregnant and everything, it really was kind of bittersweet and a blessing that I didn't end up going off on tour and being gone, because the thing is, and it was scary, is once we had a due date, we had to kind of the dates of the tour were already kind of established, and it was like, well, if as long as he is born on his due date, which about like 8% of babies are or less, then everything's going to work out, because we'll have 2 weeks off around that time, or a week off around that time. And as it happened, he was early, so about 17 days early. So if I was on tour, I probably would have been in Europe when I got the news that her water broke, and and it would have been. It's funny, we were watching This Is Us. I don't know if anybody catches that show, but on NBC. But not to plug it or anything, but the storyline of one of the characters is kind of very similar. He's off filming a movie in Canada, and he's trying to rush home because his girlfriend got... Anyway, it's kind of the same thing, but it would have been like that. It would have been in Europe, like, oh, no. Yeah. And not only that, I probably would have missed his birth. And then, but then, okay, so I get home. I have like a week to spend with him, with my new son, and then like, all right, well, see ya. Got to go back on tour. So anyway, blessing in disguise that, not that what transpired this last year was good for anybody, but at least I got to be home with my wife while she's pregnant and be there all the way, all the doctor's visits, all the scans. And then I was there, for all the labor, for him being born, and these first, 4 months now that it was his life. It's irreplaceable. It's like it's so important for me to be here and just be this influence on. I want to be a hands-on dad as much as possible, which I hear it's really hard to do when you're a traveling musician and that's what you do for a job. So anyway, here we are, and I'm happy to be a dad. It's the best thing ever. Best creation I've ever made, and. we're just very happy, and I highly recommend it. So
that's so awesome, man. Well, congratulations. That sounds, I think you shouldn't, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people who sort of see the silver lining in this situation tend to feel a little bit of guilt about that, being like, at least I got to be home for the birth of my child and stuff like that. It's not necessarily saying, oh, this was a great thing to happen in the world, but, making the best of it and finding the silver lining, I think, is totally okay.
Right.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was kind of, not similar, but it was, we had an entire U.S. tour booked for March, and we had been on tour, here in Europe with Lindemann, and we were just kind of like seeing as the situation was getting worse and getting worse and getting worse, and everybody was like, oh no, it's only in Italy, we're not going to Italy, and then I know, it's like, and then they start closing the borders, and we're in Russia at this time, and people are like running around in hazmat suits and disinfecting the airports and stuff. And I was like, oh man, I was getting so nervous, and actually we had to duck out of the Lindemann tour, I think 2 or 3 dates early, because we were going to go to the U.S. for like a 5-week tour or something like that, and so we bail on the Lindemann tour, like so bummed. We're like, oh, we don't get to go. I think it was like Vladivostok or something. It's like Vladivostok is one of my bucket list places. You've been there, right? You've been to Vladivostok.
Yeah.
Oh, so jealous. It's like
in 2015.
One of my bucket list places. But so we have to bail out early, but then like Russia locks everything down, and then those last days got canceled, and I was like sitting here like, do I go on this tour? Do I get on my flight to LA? This was like March 11th or 12th or something like that.
Yeah, it was around the same time frame that we did Mexico. Yeah. Yep. And it's that week.
And Stephanie, my wife, she's like begging me, like, don't go, this is going to be bad. I'm like, we were just the support band, so I couldn't pull rank and be like, guys, we're not going to do this tour. It's not going to.
Yeah, it's out of your control. Yeah.
So I'm trying to play ball and do the sort of like thing that you got to do. And so I'm like, writing a very politely worded email to everybody like, hey guys, it's really bad in Europe. I think America's going to get pretty bad soon. Everybody's like, yeah, it's fine. Come on over. I'm like, all right. So I get on a plane and I fly to LAX, and I get my band, I get Joey, and we're in the rental car. I swear to God, we pick up the rental car. I turn on the radio, and it's like, Trump has announced a travel ban between America and Europe, and we're like, no. It was like, this cannot be happening. I just got off the fucking
It's
plane.
a nightmare. Yeah. We had some. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we canceled the tour. I turned around and flew right back home the next day, and I had to buy of course, like that drove the flight prices like all the way up, and so I had to spend like thousands and thousands of bucks just on like a flight home, and it was. I do not recommend 2 transatlantic flights in a 24-hour period.
Oh no. Yeah, I've been there. No fun. No fun. Yeah, that happened to us. The 2 transatlantic flights. Nothing to do with COVID, but I think it's 2015. We were just zigzagging all over the world, and I remember we did download. Then we had to fly to was it download? Then we flew to LA, and then had to. No, that was when we started Warp Tour. Sorry, it's another time. Well, we were zigzagging back and forth. Basically, we went from like South America back to Europe, back to it was just crazy. And but by the end of that, I think we got to Chile, and I was just so exasperated, I collapsed on stage. I was like, "This is too much, guys," But no, it's crazy. Yeah, don't recommend that for sure.
What's your most brutal flight itinerary?
Yeah, I mean, any of the times, you go into Australia or New Zealand, and but there was one in particularly that was, this was early on, I think it was 2011, that we did, we played in Japan, or we were set to play this festival in Japan and in Tokyo. And bear in mind, the time that we were in Japan before this, we were there for the 9.0 earthquake. Or 8.9, whatever it was, and tsunami. So good times. So the second time we decided to go to Tokyo and play a festival. Like, all right, well, the first time didn't go so well, so let's make it up. Well, we were doing a tour in Europe, and we were supposed to fly from Frankfurt to do this one-off festival, right? Yeah, great idea. One-off, Europe to Japan. So we were in Frankfurt waiting for a flight. It gets canceled. And the next one we get on isn't until the next day. And they won't put us up in the hotel. So we're stranded in Frankfurt airport with all our gear.
It's a nice airport, at least. I like Frankfurt.
Yeah, sure. And anyway, so Lufthansa we're flying with. But anyway, they got us on a flight the next day. We're like, okay, fine. And it's one, it's not a direct flight. We got to stop in Istanbul on the way. And so we did. We stopped in Istanbul layover. They had just had an earthquake there, so if that's not an omen of what's to come, or no, I think they had an earthquake after we left the airport. That's what happened, and it's like everywhere we go, disaster strikes, And so we get to Japan, and it's the day of the festival because we missed a day. We were supposed to get there day before, and with the jet lag and everything, and just get over that. Oh no! So day of, we get there, and get this: all of our gear is back in Frankfurt. Of course. It never made it. It never made it. So we're like, what? We're just crazy at this point, jet lagged, and just like not having it. And we're like, of course. And we had to borrow guitars. Yeah. They weren't our instruments, not our gear, and just wing it.
A rat pedal or something.
Oh,
like that.
Yeah, it was terrible. Like, really light gauge strings. These guitars weren't even set up properly. They just, it was like, what are we doing? We did the show, and it was just such a weird crowd. And I mean, in Japan, they're all super polite. They clap after they don't. It's not like mosh pit. They're just like. So there's this like big arena. We're playing in front of this audience that not necessarily there for us, but they're very polite. Yeah. And after every song, they just whole room full of this echo. It's like one of those Shreds videos, It's like, oh my god, we haven't been to Japan.
The big echo of the claps.
Yeah. And we that sounds terrible. We haven't been to Japan since. So, but I'd like to go back and just make up for it. Third time's a charm, right?
Right. Yes. Third time.
Anyway, but that was
charm.
Yeah. But that was a terrible tour itinerary, and I hope to never do that one again.
I think my worst was I was living in Salzburg at the time. So this is like 10 years ago now. Oh my god, 11 years ago. God, I'm getting old. So I was living in Salzburg at the time, and I was going to Sydney for like our first Australian tour, and I had to take the 2.5 hour train from Salzburg to Munich, and then fly 2.5 hours from Munich to London, and then I did it's either 12 or 14 hours from London to Singapore, And then I did Singapore, Sydney, which was an additional 9.5 hours. And I just remember getting off the plane and just like, and it was, it was winter in Europe. So it was, I'm getting there with like my thick wool jacket and getting off the plane and it's just, just muggy and summer.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
it was just the most disorienting experience ever. And I don't think I ever want to repeat that. So I think if I'm ever going to go back to Australia, which I really hope to do, anybody who's watching in Australia, I love it down there. I want to come back, but I want to come via Los Angeles. And I want to have like a break before I have to get on that 15-hour flight or something to Sydney.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, I think it was it's maybe 15 hours, 17 hours. I can't remember. It was something like that because we did let's see, we did two tours in Australia. But yeah, I think it was, if I remember, it was 17 hours. The one that we did from LA to Sydney. Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal, but it is well worth it. I love Australia. I love touring there.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got to make sacrifices.
You got to make sacrifices. Yeah. And just try to learn how to sleep and figure out the jet lag if you can. And at least, as long as you get like a day in between your first gig. Yeah. Unlike that time in Japan for us.
Yeah. You just get off the plane and go to the
wing
arena.
It. Oh, no.
And your gear's not there and you get a rat pedal and a squire and they say, go for it.
Yeah. It's not supposed to be that way.
Yeah, I always feel like whenever I'm there, I've been there twice, and I feel like I never really fully get over the jet lag because it's just, it's like a day and a half or 2 days. It's like a day and a half or something like it feels like because it's a full, it's like 19 hours or something. But then with the travel on top of that, it's the most disorienting thing in the whole world for me.
Yep.
Yeah. So what I kind of wanted to ask you is, now that you're a dad, like how does that sort of rearrange the role of being an artist in your life? Does it make art sort of like take a back seat to, or does it make like art take a back seat to being a father? Do you feel more motivated now that you're a dad to I don't know, like really kick into the gear?
I'll tell you what, and I probably would be anyway, but with everything that happened this last year, not being able to tour and not be able to make any money from touring, which is how musicians sustain a living, it's been really, really tough. And then, for me, having a child during the pandemic, we also bought a house during the pandemic. So all of these things happening and then not earning any money, it was like, oh no, released from the band. I had to do a lot of side hustling. So for me, definitely made me more motivated because I'm like, I got to shift gears. I got to work. I got to, and I mean, to me, like I love what I do, and you got to love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. But anyway, long story short, I being a dad, and I just look into his eyes and I'm like, I can't let you down, kid. We got a mortgage, we got, all these bills to pay. So I'll do everything I can. And I'm just hustling. And, I've been getting some like side hustles and things, little scoring, short films and stuff, projects like that. And luckily that's come through in the pandemic. I've just been very fortunate to have those things come. And, and also with the band, we've been writing and recording a new record. And, so that's been keeping me busy. Obviously there's no real residuals that come from that until much, much later, but at least I am working and there is that, but it's definitely driven me. It's just inspired. I mean, it's inspiring having this little guy, and I think back to, I'm trying my best to just be the best dad that I can. And I'm just showering with love and like say, fortunately I get to be here with him and I get to spend as much time with him, and I have a studio in the house so I can work, but I can also take breaks and, and it's not distracting. I mean, it's distracting. You might be really into something that you're working on, and then you hear the crying in the other room, and it's like, okay, I've got to stop, got to go help mama figure this out, and but it's all good, man. It's happy distractions. I don't mind it one bit, and it's not like I can't just pick up right where I left off in the other room, and so I'm very fortunate that way. But it's definitely made me more driven. When it's like I don't really have a goal so much that I'm working for, or I do, but in a deadline and stuff. I mean, I don't know, maybe you can relate, Daniel. Maybe you don't, but I tend to procrastinate. And, I'm like, let's see, I have 2 weeks to do this. I'll get to it. And then the day before like, I better snap to it. And then I, end up spending like a 20-hour day in the studio getting it done.
I think it's the curse of the creator, man. I think we're just sort of like natural born procrastinators.
Right. And, I work under pressure. I feel like I work best under pressure. With this guy, it's like I get up in the morning. I have to get up in the morning. He's up at like 7 a.m. and just no more chatting away or screaming sometimes. And so, yep. All right. I'm up at 7. And then, once we got him up, he's fed, he's settled, we go for a walk or whatever, get him back down for a nap. Then it's like, okay, I'll get to work. And it's early, still early in the morning for me. I got the whole day ahead of me. And like I say, I'm just inspired. I'm like, I need to create because it's what I do. And, my brain is already going at the time. I've had my coffee and the ideas are just flowing. So if anything, this guy's got me more motivated and just more inspired altogether. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's totally awesome. I mean, I'm certainly the same way. Like I don't have obviously the child is the motivating factor, but I think just in general, like I spent probably the first year of this sort of situation in the world kind of like, I'm like writing and creating, but I didn't really set like goals and stuff for myself. And I found that was really, it ended up being counterproductive. And so I was like, oh man, I gotta do something with my time. And so I did this thing where I was like, okay, I'm going to release one song a month for an entire year. And, it sounds like a great idea when you're talking about it over dinner with your wife and you're like, yeah, I can totally do this. And then you're sitting down, you're like, oh my God, I have to do this.
And then the execution of it. Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, it's not just the writing, it's the, it's the mixing and it's the promotion and the artwork and just like every single thing that comes along with it. But I feel like it just totally lit a fire under my ass. Right. And it's just like, even if I wanted to procrastinate, I do not have that luxury. And it's just helping me like, just, kind of work through everything. So it's
well, and that's one thing I admire about you, Daniel. Since I've known you, you've just been very motivated, and this whole thing, setting goals for yourself every month, release a new song, and it's a lot of work. And that's what I admire about you is you're just so DIY with everything. You're just hands on. I was like, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to make the merch. I'm going to put together the tour. I'm going to do, you produce all the songs, you mix all the songs, not only being the singer and creating the music, you're all hands on deck, wear all the hats. Yeah. I know you have a lot of hats. Many hats.
Literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively. So, it's very admirable. And, yeah, man, I give you props. It's a lot of work, what you do, but it's nice to have a sense of purpose, right? And even though it's all worth the work. So, yeah, but yeah, man, props to you.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. Shucks, I never know what to do when people say nice things to me, so I'll just change the subject. But like seriously though, I didn't always have that kind of like purpose. I don't know, like I had this weird thing in my head when I was growing up that I was like, okay, I'm just going to write the songs. I'm going to be the artist. And I'm going to let like managers and labels and everybody take care of everything because like I'm the creator and I know what's up and whatever. And then, that didn't really work out. I realized after being deep in this world for 10 years, maybe even longer, that it was like, if I want anything to happen, I've like absolutely got to do it myself. And, I realized, that, I was trying to sort of like blame everybody else for all of my sort of, failure or like lack of success. Like I wasn't getting the things that I felt like I deserved. And I was so bitter and blaming everybody else.
Easy to happen. Yeah.
And then of course it's easy to lean on like drugs and alcohol and stuff to make yourself like feel better. And, that has an expiration date. You can't do that forever. I mean, you can.
No, you can't. Especially when you get closer to 40. Yeah, let me tell you. Your body just can't keep up with that kind of madness that you put it through.
No.
Well, I can relate, when it's easy to fall in that pattern, especially when you start getting some success and you have all these people around you, all the different hats when you're not wearing all the hats, and the suits or whatever it is, record label execs. Yeah. And I mean, once you just start amassing all these different people, have all these jobs, and telling you that they know what's best for you, and it's out of your control. And then when talk about those highs and lows of success or just being in the music industry, when something fails because you listen to somebody who may not have known what they're talking about, or they did, it's just I mean, pitfalls are going to happen. It's out of your control. Well, it's those factors that things out of control, and not being able to accept that those things are out of control psychologically can be a means of driving yourself to self-medicate just to deal with those pitfalls. Because when you reach certain milestones and you have these highs, when you fall into these pitfalls, you really feel it. You feel like you're hitting rock bottom, even though you're like, it's just because you can't compete with that feeling of being on that high. Being on, like, say, playing on a stage, like, say for me, like Download Festival, when you're like every Download, I always say that in every interview, it's like Download's where it's at, but opening for Metallica, or and you're just like, whoa, and then the next day, well, just say the tour's over and you go back home and you have to go to the grocery store, and nobody's cheering you on, and you're just like there became a time where I became really reclusive when we would come off a tour, and like I wouldn't even leave my house. Just acrophobic. Like I could not even. That's right. Agoraphobic. Sorry, not acrophobic. I'm afraid of heights too, but that's a different story. But agoraphobic, and just not. Like I just would not leave my front door, and it got so bad with the anxiety. I would just pace back and forth in my house, and it was really bad, and the loneliness and all that. I mean, I guess boredom. Rather than doing what I should have done and create music, which I would now, but I'm talking about this is years ago. I would, I would just drink, and it was the only thing that seemed to get me through. And that's a terrible, terrible pattern to fall into, because that never ends well for anybody. No. And and I'm sure a lot of musicians can relate. And unfortunately, and that's where we're probably going to talk soon here about Party Monster, but it just brings up a lot of memories of like drinking and the partying and all that. It's all fine when it's the party, when it's like the nightlife and everything. That's where it all started. That's when I first started drinking or whatever. That when you start waking up and having a drink just to get through your day, that's a problem. That's called alcoholism. So, and but I'm not. It's like you say, blaming everyone else and all that for your problems, or just whatever's going on in your life isn't really working out the way you want it to, or you're just having one of those moments because you're off tour and you're hitting one of those lows and you don't know what's going to come next, and you just fall into this hole, and the only way that you think you can feel it is just by numbing yourself, self-medicating.
I think a lot of people don't realize how like isolating success can be. It's really weird. And
absolutely. Yeah, well, it's like for me, I feel like you're in this tour bubble when you're on a bus with like 12 other people, and you know what each other's farts smell like, and it's just like it's not glamorous. People think, oh, life, living the life, man, success, rock star. It's really not glamorous. When you have to poop in a bag, and I mean, it's all about hotbagging, right?
Of course. I've seen many people do it. I've thankfully not had to do it, but it's great that you sort of broached the subject, and I'm sure a lot of people here what is hotbagging? So maybe if you want basically, let me just quickly explain myself here. On a tour bus, there's no like plumbing, right? It's everything that there may be a toilet, but everything that goes down that toilet goes into a tank that has to be emptied out. And there's just one standing rule: no solids in the toilet on the tour bus. So what that means. So what happens when you're on a 10-hour drive between cities and there's no stopping? I mean, you hope that maybe you guys will stop at a truck stop at some point, but sometimes you just can't wait. What do? Well, there's trash bags, bin liners.
nearby, and you'd grab one of those and you line the toilet with it and you do your business into that and you wrap it up and do something with it. Maybe save it for the next stop. I mean, it's gross. It's absolutely disgusting. And but that happens. Wait, how do we get on this subject? We were talking about something else.
How not glamorous touring actually is.
Yeah, but something led to that. That.
Yeah, sort of being out on the road and sort of the disconnect with reality, right? Because
the disconnect with reality,
disconnected from.
Yeah, right. So that's the thing. We call it tour bubble, where you're just so used to being, on this tin can traveling around the world, and then it's like tour bus to the stage. Like there's no in between, and for most people anyway, I know it's like. You're basically you stay on the bus until it's time for sound check or whatever, and then or showtime and for most people I know, they don't get to see anything outside of that. I mean, for us, like our fans they'll see the bus and they'll hover around it, and we'll have to get some security because especially in some places where our fans are just rabid.
And it makes it hard to even go out and take in any of the local culture, right? Because you just simply
exactly. Yeah. You're just kind of stuck in here, and it's not that you want to avoid your fans or anything, but it's like you need some quiet me space too. And when that space is only your bunk on the bus, it becomes very entrapping, and and you just kind of I don't know, find something to do. Like for me, I set up a whole recording studio in my bunk and kind of lose myself in that world. So at least I do something creative during that downtime in between sound check and showtime. But it is very isolating because think about that. You don't really get to go outside. And there were some tours I did where I would just sneak out or try it, put on a little disguise or something, sneak off the bus, and just to kind of get away from it. Also, because otherwise people kind of follow me and want to, whatever. So a couple of people want to take a picture, sure, whatever. But I'll just try to escape, and go to an art museum or any museum or historical site. That's something I really love is history, and so I started trying to do that more and more when I can, because that isolation it's crippling. It's crippling because and that whole same thing goes when you're off the road and you get home and it's like, oh my God, I've got all this space. I can do anything I want. I can go to this store. I can go hiking and. I just don't want to. I'm just not used to it, and I'm scared. It's a weird thing to deal with. Anyway, I can go off on a tangent with that, but it's hard to describe. Yeah, go on.
It's wild. I mean, after the first time I ever played in an arena, I came home and scooped the cat litter box. Right, this is very sort of
normal everyday things.
But your brain is sort of adjusted for one sort of way of living, and then now it's got to readjust to the normal life.
Yeah.
And that's really the problem, because you are not even connected to the world when you're in your tour bubble, and it just makes it so easy to, because I mean, people don't even realize how much alcohol and stuff is just there, and it's sort of treated almost like. Yeah, man, go ahead. The party just continues 24/7. It's like Vegas, right? It's like you're a big rolling Vegas. There's no time. There's no responsibilities. There's no nothing. It's just party, party, party. And then, and then you come home and you're just like, I don't even remember how to live.
Yeah, I don't remember how to live. So alcohol. But and like you say, the party every night. And this is very true for when you start making friends in every city as you go, or you might have some family in different cities, and to them, it's like a huge event to come see you and get to hang out and stuff before and after the show. And
it's their one night out. It's their one
night out. Yeah. And they're like, I'll bring the whiskey, I'll bring the beers, and great. And you're just like, oh man, not again. My body's still recovering from the last night of this, so it's like every single night. And, it's not you're blaming your family and your friends who are very excited to see you. No, that's normal for them to have this one time. It's not like they're drinking every night, but you are, and you can't. It's so hard to just say no. I can't. You don't
let them down, and you don't
want to let them down, exactly, and you want to give them a good time, and yeah, it's just so hard. So you just fall into that. Okay, yeah, I guess so. Well, maybe I'll have the beer, and then that beer turns into, all right, we're gonna go find this bar down the street and rage, and and then it's just and every night. And yeah, after so long, your body just kind of gives out, and it just can't keep up. And anyway.
Well, I think that's a perfect sort of seg into talking about our song "Party Monster," which you and I did. Man, ages ago for a band that we started that never really materialized.
Yep. Yeah. Ghosts May Fall.
Yes,
is what we were calling that. The words were picked out of a hat, as I recall, one of your many hats. And and I thought it was a cool name.
That's back when I was like super into the David Bowie cut up technique, right? So I would take a bunch of words that I like. I would either take either words that I just enjoyed myself, and I would make a note and then print it out, or I would print out lyrics from David Bowie or Cure songs or something like that, and then I'd cut them up and I'd stick them in it was actually in an ice cream tub. They had these really nice, fancy gelato type ice creams at, I think it was Whole Foods or something. And instead of throwing the container away, I would always, or my wife would reuse them, and then it ended up becoming a part of my studio for the words. And I think I pulled 4 or 5 different combinations of words out of the ice cream tub, and I was texting you. I was like, Ghost May Fall or this or that, and you're like, Ghost May Fall. It's like, okay, cool. So that was so that was our band that never really happened. I think we've never even talked about this publicly. So now everybody
we have not. No. Remember, I think the time we were starting to kind of put that together. I remember when we first were talking about even doing any kind of creating together. It was after a show that you came to, the Wiltern, Black Phil was doing, and it was where we filmed our live show,
Live and Burning, right? Yeah,
Live and Burning show. Yeah, the first one, and and then we hung out afterwards. I think we finished off a bottle of vodka together, and but we're like, oh my god, yeah, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make this band, and but then we. After we were sobered up or whatever, we followed through to actually talked about putting it into fruition. And
we should get credit for that, for actually following through and writing songs.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't so many times in, you meet somebody or you go partying in LA, we'll get to this too in a bit, but where it's just oh yeah, man, or you're just you do a line of coke and you're just talking, oh my God, I got all these great ideas. And, oh yeah. The next year is
we should start a band.
Start a band, man. But no, anyway, Ghost May Fall, it was a great idea, and it got us working together, and which was just, we come from such kind of different backgrounds. I've come from I play in a metal band, or a rock band, and you're more electronic, and it's just it's different worlds that, when we put it all together, it made something just so unique that I don't think anybody's heard before. So, but yeah, I think at the time we were starting to write together. I was scoring that film, escape room film, and I was like, oh, dude, and I think it just kind of got us motivated because I was like, I need 4 songs for this that aren't score songs. They're just songs. I need a dancey. I need a kind of piano thing here, and it's well, why don't we make those Ghost May Fall songs? I'm like, that's perfect. And so that's I think that's where it started, right? We had 4 songs on that it was
I think maybe we had 1 or 2 meetings before.
We had 1 or 2. I think
that's when we really were okay, we're gonna put our nose to the grindstone and actually finish some stuff. And I think actually a lot of the stuff that ended up coming together was actually really good. And Party Monster is one of those songs. I think it's probably the best one, and I actually asked your permission if I could use that as an aesthetic perfection song, because it was so great to sit down and like you said, write with somebody that is coming from a completely different place. And I feel your background, you're also a classical musician as well, so you actually understand music theory, and I'm one of those computer guys who doesn't understand anything about music theory. So I learned but it was such an awesome experience because I learned so much about what it is to collaborate, to work with other people who have different kinds of ideas, and how to incorporate those ideas in a way where it ends up becoming more than the sum of its parts, right? It's like,
Yep.
for me, who's been working almost my entire life solo, it was really a game changer for me. And you know, it was after that's when I really sort of said, okay, I'm going to start collaborating more with, you know, Aesthetic Perfection, because I feel like there's so much to be learned from these experiences. And also, you know, you can make songs that are like better than anything than you've been able to create on your own. So Party Monster was absolutely one of those tracks. And I'm so grateful that you allowed me to release it, and maybe one of these days I can talk you into letting me release a couple more.
Yeah, totally, man. Well, you know, I'd rather you do that than they just sit there and nobody hears them. You know, I think people need to hear these songs, and yeah, man, I'm excited that came out this last week, and I'm glad it's been getting some good positive reviews, because, you know, the song means a lot to me, and as I'm sure you know, it means to you, it's a very personal story. And you know, I think at this point in both of our lives, we're we're ready to leave the party. You know, it's like, all right, it's time. You know, and I've definitely matured more as a person and grown more. You know, especially becoming a dad. It's just like, well, you know, I can't live like how I used to anymore. It's just like totally different lifestyle, which I'm embracing now and loving. But it's good to like look back with, you know, with some fondness for those memories, but also be like, man, I survived that. And you know, I think the song very typically describes that feeling of, you know, the party's over, but just how much, that what we were just talking about, you know, self-medicating, and then, you know, you just don't feel alive when you're sober. So I'll drink myself to death. I mean, it's just such a great line, man, you know? But yeah, I think it was a perfect time for that to come out. I'm glad that you're able to share it on Aesthetic Perfection. Of course, man, you have my permission for all of that. You know, I think, you know, I love your band. You know, I think it's a perfect platform to release that music on. So definitely, you know, we've got a few others, I think, in the bag. So in time.
Man, I consider that a legally binding agreement, and I will hold you to that.
Yep.
In court of law in the future. Yeah. So, I think that one of the things that sort of made me reluctant to give up, you know, the party earlier was, you know, I felt like all of my favorite artists were complete messes, right? Like, you know, they never got their shit together, and they were just, you know, it's like you read about all of the quote unquote greats and just how they were just borderline unmanageable, how they couldn't keep anything together. And I believed that was the way I needed to be. I was like, if I get my shit together, I'm going to suck. And, you know,
I'm going to be boring. I'm going to be, I need to be
those feelings.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, yeah, the whole time growing, I mean, so for me, I started in music very early. You know, both my parents were musicians, my whole family, you know, I come from a family of musicians, and growing up, well, for me, I was a nerd growing up. I would lock myself in my room and play guitar for hours straight. And I was so shy. And I remember the first time ever really like going out and playing for like school talent show or something. I was just so scared, but I was playing guitar, and I would hide behind my guitar. And that was my, you know, my crux, you know, I could never be a singer or anything, a front man, but, no, I could not do what you do, man. It's a whole different thing. But you know, because I have to have that guitar or something to hide behind. But anyway, but part of me, growing, you know, after I got used to performing more, you know, and still to this day, I get butterflies in my stomach before, like, say, stepping out on stage at Download, and it's like, oh my God, you know, and you get in this rut of like doing a pre-show shot just to kind of settle the nerves and all that. But for me, socially, drinking is where it all started. And go back to what you're saying about all of our heroes just being complete messes. and you thought, part of me was like, oh, that's so cool. Or they came up with like my favorite songs when they're tragically doing some, you know, almost near death because they were so reckless. And you think, oh, that's what I have to do. I got to do that to create this really dark, amazing music. You know, I mean, you read like Motley Crue's The Dirt, or, you know, it's all these stories. And it's, I mean, not to say that, Nikki Sixx has been very vocal about not glamorizing any of that stuff, you know, but in a way it was like, well, it's kind of glamorized, you know, and behind the music VH1 when those came out, it was just like, wow, it's so interesting to hear all these stories behind the music. And
they're supposed to be cautionary tales, but they're absolutely not.
They're absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, yeah, I want that. I want to party. I want the girls, the drugs, and all, and so you get caught up.
I want
to die. Yeah, that's so cool. So cool. For me personally too, from the classical background that I have, I was obsessed with Mozart and his life after watching Amadeus for the first time when I was a kid. And, in that movie, it might not accurately portray his life or, but I feel like it might get some of what his personality might have been like from what I've read from certain biographies, like Marcia Davenport's biography is really detailed about his kind of personality and what a silly, kind of childish character he was, and a bit of a party monster,
I just read that he would jump on his piano and act like a cat sometimes. Have you read that? Oh my dude.
Yeah, I mean,
Google Mozart jumping on his piano and like rolling around like a cat. I guess it horrified the orchestra. Somehow I got
okay. Yeah, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one, but yeah, certain excerpts from some of the books I read on his. He was very vulgar, and some of his letters that he wrote to people, or he was very blunt, and he had an ego about him, but later on in life, and I think after some setbacks for him, so they had a lot of competition in Vienna where he worked, and it was just like at the time maybe wasn't. People did admire him, and he was, just a phenomenal composer and musician. But he was also very vulgar and just a horrible person to deal with. So a lot of people would shun him, and this led to some failures in the scene, which led to his pitfalls and his drinking, and then he was taking this whatever concoction medicines at the time that were supposed to help him with his depression or whatever it was, and it just made things worse. And he just ended up losing his mind. And you get this kind of portrayal of this guy, this fun-loving party monster, and you're like, oh, he's so cool, and Amadeus, and adorable, and then it gets dark in the end, and that's when he creates his darkest, the Requiem Mass is so dark, and the magic flute is just insane, and so creative. So he had to have just been totally messed up when he did that. Well, the reality is, and anybody who actually studies his music in his life knows that. No, he put a lot of thought into those pieces. It wasn't just that he was completely insane. He might have had some inspiration from somewhere that was a little oddball, a lot of stuff in magic flutes because he was a Mason. It wasn't just because he was messed up on drugs and drinking. Yeah. I think he was able to create that stuff in between the times that he was messed up. But you got to, I think, at 36 when he died, or 35 rather, he at that point in his life, and knowing,
oh my God,
yeah, and when you get to that age and you put your body through that, as we were just discussing, when you drink yourself under the table, and you can't really do much creating, or it's very crippling, and you can't really do much more than just sleeping it off or being passed out on the table. So I think he was actually really slow to produce those things in the end of his life because of his drinking, and it was actually a detriment to his creativity rather than an instrument. So, long story short, I think all of that stuff was so much glamorized by what we were seeing in interviews, these documentaries, and it still is to kind of this day. I mean, you see what should be a cautionary tale, but you watch a documentary on Netflix, and and what's more fascinating to people? It's documentaries on serial killers, and people just messed up, and it's there's something to be said about, and that's a whole other subject, the psychology of the human mind, and where people are at, and they're drawn, how they're drawn to darkness and dark aspects of human existence. But anyway, to answer your question, I think we're kind of misled in our youth, and after having experienced in trying to live that lifestyle and realizing that we weren't our best selves, and maybe didn't create our best pieces of work. At least, I mean, that's subjective, Of
course,
somebody might say, oh, well, your stuff was better in the early days when you were messed up and drinking a lot. And fair enough. I disagree, but but I think it's definitely yeah, it's misleading. It's not. I think I'm my best self, and I am. I create the best. I feel the best when I'm sober and I'm actually paying attention to what I'm doing. And I think that's true to be said for most artists out there.
Yeah, I feel like the narrative is like, people still sort of glorify that I don't know, that image, but I do feel like maybe like the kids today have a little bit more. I don't know, like the narrative is shifting a little bit. They want their musicians, their artists, their role models to actually not be, messed up scumbags. And I think that bodes well for the future. At least I hope so. So I hope that we can get rid of that narrative going forward, because I actually pose this as a question to you, but I personally believe that the arts tend to draw people with a lot of demons, and I feel like it's just so easy to go down that path in this world, because not only is there so much opportunity, it's just sort of like a magnet for people who we need validation. We need to numb whatever kind of crazy stuff is going on in our heads all the time. And, I think that if we have a culture that sort of like encourages positivity and, not sobriety, we don't have to be teetotalers, but I think that taking away the glamour from all of these rock star narratives is a good thing.
Absolutely. I fully agree. And I have been seeing more and more of that lately, with younger generations where they're not so much looking up to that, messy rock star life, and it isn't glamorous to them. And it's really great to see that. What I'm seeing more and more, at least with our own fans, with Black Veil, is kids picking up an instrument, picking up a guitar, and just shredding. I love seeing these YouTube videos of these kids like playing our songs even better than I can play them. It's like, whoa, okay. Awesome. But it's inspiring. And they say, oh, I picked up a guitar because I picked up the violin because your overture. And I'm like, that's amazing. And that brings me back to, down to earth, because it brings me back to why I started, pursued a career in music in the first place. Why, it brings me back to that kid who always had a guitar strapped to him and locked himself in a room for hours at a time trying to learn Metallica songs, and that to me is the whole point of it. And it wasn't the partying, but like you say, you brought up a good point about being validated and stuff, because I was very shy and very not. I didn't just not very confident, growing up, and it's no fault but my own. I just it was just the way I was. I was shy, and when I started, socially drinking and stuff, and or whatever, or bands started becoming, I was in a popular band and playing in front of large audiences, and then just the attention I would get after a show, and it was like, wow, this is all, and it all kind of came together, and I broke free of that bondage of being shy, and I would get that validation, and I'm like, oh, I am worth something. But it's false validation. It should be self-gratifying, the music you create, and and also the appreciation you get. But for me, I think rather than just like the groupies or the people just blowing smoke up your butt, it's the kids who pick up an instrument because I set an example, and from now on, it's like I want to set the right example. Not by being a complete mess, but by being a good musician and trying to better myself, and every day like learn something new and try to get better at my art and create better songs and better music.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I 100% suffer from lead singer syndrome, in the sense that I act super boisterous and like I'm like always comfortable in front of a camera and on a stage, but I'm like totally not at all. And I think I told you before we started this, I was super nervous about doing this. I'm like, why am I super nervous about sitting down and having a conversation with my friend? Like
and I'm your buddy. Yeah.
It's
right. It's weird. Yeah.
It's such a weird thing. And my stage fright does not get better, but I've just kind of learned to embrace it. Right. Like I'm just kind of, that feeling of like, I've just got to take this leap despite the fear. Right. Like, and right. if I numb the fear, I won't appreciate, what I get when I actually succeed. And also,
Exactly.
if I get totally wasted, I will probably botch the show or whatever it is I'm gonna do.
Yeah. It's like think like oh man, I'm so nervous to do the show. I'm just gonna take a shot, and
Yeah.
all right, yeah, I feel better. And then you are
you-
remember that time when alcohol makes you stupid, by the way. It doesn't make you smart.
Have you ever done the thing where you're like, you're totally wasted on stage and you are just like in the moment, you're like, man, I am killing it right now. And then you see like a video after and you're like,
Yes.
you're just a mess and you're just like doing everything wrong and you just
Sloppy, so sloppy. Now, that can definitely be said of myself. Yeah, I was like, man, I'm so on point, and and in the moment. Well, here's the thing too. So playing a show completely wasted, it goes so quick, right? And then playing a show completely sober, it goes so slow. You're like, oh my god, we're only on song 3. Where but when you're wasted, it's just it all is like, oh my god. It's over already. There's been shows I don't even remember, and it's just sad. And I don't know if you're familiar with Black Veil songs. There's a lot of notes. There's a lot of stuff going on there,
and not just like 3-chord punk rock songs.
No, and
more technical.
Yeah, it's very technical. There's a lot of just crazy stuff going on, and so
just imagine like trying to like finger pluck or whatever you call that, the finger
tapping, and and
just probably
sweeping.
I don't know, just
I mean, well, for somehow, I mean, the thing is too, we always warm up before a show, and we would like have a warm up drink or something, but you just kind of get in the, you have these rituals you do before a show, and you just get ready, and after you play these songs so many times, even with all the notes, it's kind of becomes like
muscle memory.
Well, it's just muscle memory at that point, but honestly, no, you don't play your best. It's kind of a catch-22. I mean, sometimes too, if you're unless you've done your practice playing sober, like for many times, and you get better at playing sober, you're just like for the first time when you're not used to it, you're like making all these mistakes because you're
nervous.
Really you're nervous. Yeah, it's the nerves. Yeah. You got to feel those nerves, and you got to be able to counter those nerves. Without numbing the nerve, you got to feel it and to get overcome them. I was just there's a band we toured with we were on tour with Avenged Sevenfold back in 2011, and not to put anybody under the bus or anything, but we're watching Sin Gates, man. He's an incredible musician, incredible. And I think that these guys were at the end of their touring cycle. It was on the Buried Alive tour, and it was after they lost Jimmy the Rev, but they at the end of the cycle, and they were, there was a lot of drinking going on, and I mean, and we were at that time early in our careers, and we were drinking a lot just because, like, oh my god, we're on tour with these guys at Avenged Sevenfold are so cool, and we want to party, party, and we were watching Zig Gates, man, and he's just so incredible. But I hope he's not watching this. But anyway, he was like drinking a bottle of Lafroig, this is Scotch.
Oh yeah,
and he would have like a bottle with him on stage, and just chug. He'd have it over by the drum riser and just chugging the thing, right? And then he'd go back to just and like not missing a note. And I mean, he would come back like after the show. He's like, "Oh man, I botched." Like, are you kidding me? I didn't hear it. Where? Like, this guy's just like on point. And again, it's just that must be that muscle memory, because no one should be able to drink that much and be able to. Anyway, I don't recommend it, but it's just like you get to a point where I guess your tolerance just goes through the roof too, and that happened with us too. It's like, oh my god, where you can just down. That's not healthy. But anyway, it's just like the muscle memory happens, but. For myself, it's not like always you have a show that's like, I played that. Like you say, you go back and watch the videos where you thought like, man, that was just, I ripped that solo. Ooh, no, I didn't. Ouch. Oh, I'm not going to watch that again. Hopefully that isn't, And unfortunately, once it's on YouTube, it's there forever. So,
that's the unfortunate, because it's like, I think, everybody sort of like talks romantically about, the crazy debaucherous stuff of like Led Zeppelin and Motley Crue and all this kind of stuff. It's like, these guys were around before like cell phones and before everybody had just like a video camera in their pocket. I swear to God,
Yep.
these stories would not be nearly as epic if you saw the reality. Like if we had like shaky smartphone video of whatever kind of like crap those guys got up to, we would probably be just like
disgusted.
Oh, no, instead of like, oh my God, man, they were so cool. You know, they're throwing TVs out the window. Like if somebody was throwing a TV out my window in my hotel, I'd be mortified. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. Like Hammer of the Gods is Led Zeppelin's early biography, or what? And you read all these stories, and here's the thing. Back then, there were no cell phones or no. And they were able to put all these stories into a book, take the time to like, oh, let's tell this story in this funny way. And rather than, you know, it's like everybody just sees it, you know, uploaded to YouTube and it's there. And, you know, the actual reality of it, you can glamorize it. You can romanticize all these stories and make it sound cool and put it in a book and people read it and it becomes legendary.
The legend in reality.
Yeah, in this day and age, it's all reality TV. So it's like everything is just instant uploaded, and it's the real deal. And so it's very much not romantic or glamorous. And yeah, I think that's where the narrative and things have changed, shifted in the best possible way. Really,
I totally agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am going to not take up too much more of your time, but I want to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions because I think these questions are super interesting, and I always want to know like how my fellow artists feel about them. Because, I'll ask you the questions and then I'll tell you why I asked it. All right.
Shoot.
Oh wait, where is it? I'm all looking at my sheet. See, I got nervous, and then I had to consult my cheat sheet. Oh yes, right. Do you consider yourself a performer, a creator, or both?
Oh, both. And not necessarily at the same time. Let me explain that real quick. So when you're a performer, like say, you know, you're on tour and you're performing on stage, it's a different feeling than when you're in the studio creating, and it's just a completely different personality.
Yep.
Just modus operandi. Performing, you know, you're kind of going off of a lot of feeling and intuition, you know, and just nerves when you're in the studio. I mean, there can be nerves in the studio when you're in a room full of people and you're trying to come up with a part or whatever, but it's totally different because you're using your brain, or maybe a different part of your brain when you're creating than you are when you're performing. So both, yeah.
So I asked that because it's like the more I spend time on tour, the more I realize that it's not that I don't like being on stage or I don't like performing or, you know, anything like that, but I realize that I don't love it in the same way that, for example, like Joey does, right? Like Joey,
right? Like, he's a performer.
He's like, I'm ready to get on stage, man. I'm ready to get on stage. I just can't wait to go out there and just show them what I can do.
That's a great impression. Yeah.
I got to make the arms bigger, but I was trying to get it in the frame of the.
Yeah.
Joey's just always like, I just can't wait to get out there, man. It's gonna be awesome. Yep. And I'm just like, I'm nervous, dude. I don't know. It's like, and I realize that I have a sort of different way of looking at it. And for me, the real sort of, how do I say, like the satisfaction of being an artist or creator or something for me is like being here and like being able to make stuff out of nothing. And performing is good, but I wouldn't, for example, like do it for another band. Right? Like I wouldn't go on tour and go on stage for somebody else's band because like I do this because it's my art and I want to share it with the world. Right. And that's part of the job. Right. So,
well, to kind of leap off of that idea, you're performing somebody else's music, which I've been in that position in the past. Actually, Joey and I were in a band together. We were in Amen. And it was the first time I toured Europe, I think, for him too. And, but we were essentially playing somebody else's catalog. At that point, Casey Chaos, he had several albums out, and we were like the third lineup of that band at the time, and kind of revolving door going on. But we had to learn like his whole catalog, and we spent. It was like I related it to be like being in the being in the Army or something. It was like drilling every day, and we'd wake up at like 8 a.m. and I'd hear Joe warming up in his drums. It was just like the drum call, and I was like, all right, time to get, and actually I was sleeping in Casey's garage at the time, so I was just woken. I was like, all right, I'm awake. And but anyway, yeah, and we would just run through as many songs, like learn and run through these songs. And it was like 70, 80 songs or something in this catalog we had to learn, and because on the tour too, it's like, oh well, it's going to be fan favorites every day, so they're going to pick songs that so you got to just pull them out of your butt, and it was brutal, but totally. It just, when I started really creating, I think was in my next project, and I started working with Chris Hall, Stabbing Westward fame, and we had a band together called The Dreaming, and I admired him so much as a songwriter because he, when I was a kid growing up in Des Moines, Iowa, this Stabbing Westward songs would come up on the radio, get pretty constant play.
Phenomenal singer.
Phenomenal singer, and just a great songwriter, man. And so we started working together, and he really got a lot out of me, and he utilized certain talents I had that I'd never really showcased before, like the violin, and our first thing we wrote together, we did some reimagining of songs that he had demoed out, and on acoustic guitar and violin, and that was where I really kind of got to showcase a lot of my creativity. And then we did a whole album together, and we toured on it for like 4 years before we kind of parted ways in friendly terms and everything, and I got into Black Veil, but yeah, it was just a totally different thing. Like, I enjoyed it so much more, creating our own music, and that's where I was getting to, creating our own music and then playing your own music, because there's something about that, rather than, some people can be completely satisfied and complacent playing other people's music, and that's totally fine. You have great session musicians out there. It's just, they're great musicians, or people that, would be somebody's backup band or whatever, or people just happy playing top 40 covers in a bar. It's a different kind of animal to be a creator than just a performer. Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to anybody watching, I wasn't trying to make a value judgment there, saying like, oh, it's better to do it this way or this way.
No, it's a personal choice. Choice, always. Yeah.
I always just find it interesting because, like I was saying, being on tour with a bunch of performers who are just like aching to get out on stage every night, not feeling a nervous bone in their body, and I'm just like, damn you. Oh, man.
Well, to be fair, I don't know if that's the same with every performer. I don't know. I can't speak for Joe, but I feel like, I don't know. I was in a band with him for a while, and surely he's got to have some nerves, but he has this whole ritual. You don't think so?
Any nerves? At least not anymore.
That man has no nerve.
Dude, every night he's just like I want to go. Is it time?
I know.
Can we go?
Yeah.
Is it time to go? Yep. And I'm,
Right. I know what you mean. Yeah. I'm envious too. Yeah.
All right. So my second rapid fire question is when did you realize that you were a music industry lifer?
Oh man, I guess from day one. Well, no, I shouldn't say from day one, because I had other interests than music. Music was just my surroundings growing up. But so you never really know what I guess you're going to end up doing, especially where I grew up in Iowa. People don't do music as a career; it's a hobby. And don't really take it that seriously. I think what really kind of woke me up that I could make it into a career than just a weekend hobby was seeing a local band just explode. As band Slipknot. You might have heard of them. I don't know.
No, it's not ringing any bells at all.
And it was very personal for me seeing them come up and after they got signed, and then they just took over the world. And I knew some of the guys growing up. My brother was in a band with Corey when they were like 15, called I think it was called Criminal Mischief. Yeah, and then eventually that band became Stone Sour later on. And but my early memories in Des Moines were I was like 10 years old, and they'd be playing in my mom's living room, playing Metallica songs or whatever, and then come out with my little guitar and try to jam with them and stuff, But even then it was just like, oh well, they're just they're in a band and it's cool and everything, but they're playing bars, and I think they even at one point opened up for my dad's band in this like Bohunk bar in Dayton. It was like a really small town, like 100 people, and but it's just like, oh, that's cool and everything, but it's a weekend gig. They're weekend warriors, and when the reality really hit me, and when they got signed, and then they just exploded. And it wasn't like I was just sneaking out to go see them at Harry Mary's, this tiny little, crap hole bar. They were like playing festivals and headlining, and it was like, okay, this actually could be a reality. It's not so, there's not that disconnect anymore for me. And I realized at the time that it wasn't going to happen for me in Des Moines. It worked for them and everything, luckily, but for me, I just couldn't find the right players. People, like-minded people, is all that same mentality. It's like you graduate high school, you either go to college or you get a job, and you get pregnant, and that's your life. You got to work. You got to work 9 to 5. And I was like, no, this is not good enough for me. So I had to make a change, and I uprooted my life, and I moved to the West Coast, and until eventually I ran into Joe Letts at a bar called the Rainbow Bar and Grill in LA, and
that's where you met him.
We were so drunk. Yeah. I think we made out. We were really drunk, and then the next, ask him about it sometime. He'll tell you. He might deny it. I doubt he would deny it, though.
I'm sure he will comment on this video when it goes live and tell the whole story for all of our viewers. Awesome, man. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. I really, really appreciate you talking to me, sitting down and shooting about all the artistic stuff. You've got, do you have a release date for the new Black Veil album? Because you dropped Scarlet Cross, in November, right?
We did, November 13th. We have not set a release date yet for the record. It is, I can tell you that we've wrapped recording on it, but that's about all I can tell you. But stay tuned. Stay tuned. If you haven't already, go listen to Scarlet Cross. It's a taste of what's yet to come. Videos on YouTube, and
it's a great song.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Thank you. And request it in your radio station in your town, whatever. And also, of course, listen to Party Monster. That's now out on all platforms. Very personal song for me and Daniel. And that's about it.
Thanks, Jinxx. All right. I will be sure to put all of Jinx's social media links in the description. Thank you so much, Jinxx, for being a part of my 12 Songs in 12 Months project. Be sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and also be sure to do the same for my buddy Jinxx. Take care, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, man.